Have you ever wondered what it truly means when we call someone enlightened? And have you ever considered whether a figure as extraordinary as the Buddha could also have felt the struggles of being a son, a husband, a father, a human being just like us? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a perspective on the Buddha's life that is often overlooked. Too often, we imagine him as distant, untouchable, a figure of perfection carved in stone. But before he became the Buddha, he was Siddhartha, a man of flesh and blood, torn between duty and longing, between family ties and spiritual hunger. By looking at his story through the lens of everyday humanity, we not only understand him more deeply, but we also begin to see how his path of awakening offers a living guide for our own lives. The central message for today is this: enlightenment is not about escaping humanity, it is about embracing it with clarity and courage. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you will see your own struggles, your family responsibilities, your disappointments, your longings in a new light, one that reveals them not as obstacles, but as stepping stones toward awakening. The prince who was first a son. Before Siddhartha was the Buddha, he was a son, born into privilege, surrounded by luxury. Jesus, nevertheless bound by the same invisible threads of expectation and family responsibility that bind us today. His father, the king, envisioned him as a ruler, the leader who would expand the kingdom's glory. Can you imagine the pressure? Every look, every word from his father carried away to the weight of legacy, of duty, of a future already written. And yet within him there was a restlessness. Have you felt that yourself, the sense that the life others prescribe for you doesn't quite fit, even if it looks perfect from the outside? Siddhartha lived that tension. On one side, the warmth of family and the comfort of palace walls, and the other, an unspoken question: is this all there is? It's easy to think of the Buddha's renunciation as cold abandonment, but what if we saw it as the story of a son who loved deeply, but also longed to understand more deeply? What if we recognized that the very ache you felt to the tug between pleasing family and listening to your inner voice was the same ache that propelled him to leave the palace gates? Doesn't that make his story less distant and far more relatable? A husband who loved and left. Siddhartha was also a husband. He loved Yasodhara, his wife, and together they shared tender moments, as well as the arrival of their son Rahula. Imagine the conflict in his heart. On one hand, the joy of holding his newborn child. On the other, the haunting vision of old age, sickness, and death he had witnessed outside the palace walls. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where every choice seemed impossible? If you stayed, you betrayed your calling. If you left it, you betrayed those you loved. Siddhartha's decision to leave his family wasn't heartless, it was heartbreaking. It was the decision of someone who believed that the only way to truly love was to seek an answer to suffering that would one day embrace not only his family, but all families and all beings. Isn't it striking that even the Buddha's story is marked by tension, by imperfection, and by loss? And doesn't that remind us that our own conflicts, our own dilemmas may also hold the seeds of transformation? The seeker who faced himself. When Siddhartha left the palace, the journey didn't become easier. In fact, it became harder. He went from silken sheets to the bare ground, from banquets to a begging bowl. He trained with teachers, tried austerities, nearly starved himself in pursuit of answers. Can you picture him sitting under the Bodhi tree, his body frail, his mind battered by doubt? This is where his humanity is most visible. He wasn't handed enlightenment like a crown. He struggled, he failed, he doubted, and yet he persisted. That is why his awakening matters, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Think about your own life. How many times have you tried to fix yourself overnight, only to stumble again and again? How many times have you believed that peace or clarity was out of reach because you weren't strong enough? Siddhartha's story tells us that struggle is not the enemy, it is the path, it is the very soil in which awakening grows. Enlightenment is a human experience. When Siddhartha finally awoke under the Bodhi tree, he didn't become something other than human. He became fully human, awake to reality as it is without illusion. His enlightenment wasn't escape, wasn't some otherworldly trance. It was seeing with total clarity the truths we all live with, impermanence, suffering, and the possibility of liberation through compassion and wisdom. This is why we must resist the temptation to worship the Buddha as a distant idol. The point is not to marvel at his perfection, but to mirror his courage in our own lives, to see him as a man who felt love and loss, doubt and despair, but who chose to stay with those experiences until they ripened into wisdom. And that is what makes his story a living manual for us. It tells you that your heartbreak is not a dead end. It is part of the path. Your disappointments are not detours, they are the training ground. Your longing for something more is not foolish, it is the very seed of awakening, bringing the Buddha's humanity into our own lives. So how do we apply this? Start by embracing your roles fully. Be a son or daughter with presence, recognizing the love and expectations of your family without losing yourself. Be a partner with compassion, balancing the needs of those you love with the truth of your own journey. Be a seeker with courage, willing to face discomfort and doubt without giving up. Remember that awakening doesn't happen outside of life. It happens in the kitchen, the office, the classroom, the quiet moment before sleep. It happens in the way you respond to a loved one's criticism, and the way you breathe through stress, and the way you choose compassion over resentment. The Buddha's story isn't asking you to abandon your life. It's asking you to live it with eyes wide open. Reflection before we end. So let me ask you, if the Buddha himself was once torn between family love and spiritual longing, between comfort and courage, what does that say about your own struggles? Could it be that the very tensions you're facing are not signs of failure, but signs that you're walking a path worth walking? And what if you began to see yourself not as someone waiting for perfection, but as someone already on the path of awakening, step by step through the messiness of human life? That is the gift of seeing the Buddha not just as a sage, but as a son, a husband, and a human being. It means you don't have to wait to become someone else before beginning your own journey. You can begin right here, right now. Invite you to reflect and share which part of the Buddha's humanity speaks to you most deeply. The son torn by duty, the husband torn by love, or the seeker torn by doubt? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this message touched you, please like, subscribe, and support this channel, so together we can continue exploring the wisdom that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary journeys. Thank you for watching this video.
Before you leave, here's something special. In Buddhism, we believe that every encounter carries a deeper meaning. Would you like to discover your true soul connection, the one written into your destiny? Take the Soulmate Test today and unveil the hidden truths of your journey. Click the link below and begin your path now.
http://soulmate. You wisdom more, come, white.